All right, here's a news flash for you. Children have a right to their parents, both a mother and a father. And I know this is shocking to some on the left, parents have the right and responsibility to raise their children. But increasingly, the left has been trying to drive a wedge between parents and their children. And they've been increasingly using the education system to do that, teaching our children that right is wrong and wrong is right. But then something happened. We call it COVID. You know, it's funny. They used COVID to suppress and to clamp down, but it revealed some things. COVID, it kind of pulled back the curtain on education as parents began seeing what their kids were doing. And you know what? They're still pushing back now that they know what's happening. So now the left wants to bring in the blind, so to speak. They want to shut it down again so parents can't see what is happening. Well, a new bill has been introduced in Congress that seeks to keep schools transparent and accountable. Joining me now to talk about this is Meg Kilgannon, Senior Fellow for Education Studies here at FRC. Meg, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Okay, so let's talk about this bill. Julia Letlow from Louisiana introduced it. This is something that is the result of a massive amount of parental pushback and parents asking for this. What does it do?
There are 5 areas that they're seeking to ensure that parents have sort of a baseline of rights across all of the United States. Education is a state and local issue, obviously. It's mostly governed in localities. But there are certain baselines that the House Republicans want to see that are ensured. So, you know, that parents have a right to know what their children are being taught. So they want state education agencies to post any curricula that your child is going to see, that you'd be able to review that if you wanted to. I think that's perfectly reasonable. In the computer age, why not, right?
Well, and you're also paying for it.
You are paying for it. And then that parents have a right to be heard. We've had all this controversy with the
domestic terrorist.
Yes. And so they're just underscoring the fact that parents have a right to be heard. They have a right to meet with their children's teachers a couple of times a year. Just basic things that, you know, when we were in school, you didn't really have to guarantee by federal statute.
No, actually, back then when I was a kid, I know that's been many, many moons ago, but the teachers were calling the parents,
right,
saying, "Hey, come in and have a conversation with you."
And the teachers were parents,
yeah,
right? They were mostly it was moms, right? It was a great way to have a second income and be home when your kids were home, right? And so, that was the second mom on duty at school there, but that's not the situation we find ourselves in today. So then the third point is the issue of schools and budgeting. And in the work that we've done at FRC on our school board boot camps, it has been amazing to me to hear from school board members the school board members have a hard time seeing the budget from the staff that runs the school system sometimes. And there have even been cases where lawsuits have been filed, a school board member against a school district to get the budget numbers. Wow. So this one might seem like, of course you can. No, in fact, a lot of times you can't, even if you're the elected representative. So we're glad to see that one. And then one of the really interesting parts of this is their protections on privacies. They're updating the FERPA and the PPRA, but there are so many surveys that our kids are taking now because of social emotional learning. Right. That they want that data protected, and then any parent
That's been an issue for a while.
It has been.
Even pre-COVID.
Yes, absolutely. And any parent who has a child with an online textbook or a school-issued computer device knows that at the beginning of the school year, you're punching yes on a lot of user agreements, and you don't know what they really say because your child needs them for school. And so now they want to try to protect that data from being shared without parental consent, which I think is really good.
All 5 areas seem very reasonable. Unlikely that it will get through the Senate. It's certainly going to pass the House. Doubt that it gets through the Senate. If it did, this runs contradictory to the philosophy of the Biden administration. But does this not provide a good model for what states can do?
It absolutely does, and it's a great starting point. It's a federal piece of legislation, so a state or a locality can do even more to protect parental rights because they are actually overseeing the schools.
Yeah, I scratch my head. as to how in the world we got to this point where we have to have legislation to say parents have rights to see what their children are being taught. I mean, step back for just a moment dispassionately and think about that. That's incredible that that's where we are in this country, that we have to have congressional action so parents know what's going on in the classroom.
Well, there was a time when we had a baseline of shared values in our country, and there were certain things that everybody agreed on.
Yeah.
And one of those was that there is a God, and that
and we're not him.
We're not him, right? And those values are simply not shared any longer.
But it's not there's no neutrality. This idea that there can be a neutral position in between the two, it doesn't exist because they're imposing that ideology upon our children.
Absolutely. That this is also the case that this is one of those issues that one side sort of let the other side have.
Yeah.
We just sort of ceded this territory.
Well, we're not any longer. We're fighting back. Legislation, school board boot camps, FRC Action.
FRCAction.org/schools.
All right, Meg, we're out of time. Always great to talk with you.
Same.
Keep up the good work.
Great to see you.